What up, Yugi fam? I wanted to share my Prank Kids deck profile. Um, I've just recently started playing Prank Kids, but I fell in love with the deck. It's a great combo deck. It builds up a lot of advantage, and it's extremely fun to play. I've played it twice at locals. First time I was kind of just trying to get the hang of it, but then yesterday at locals. Not to brag, but I went undefeated for 5 rounds, and I thought that was it. It gives this deck does deserve some respect for being able to hold up against a lot of the meta decks or tier 1.5 or tier 2 decks, and just have a good matchup overall. So I wanted to share my deck profile with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy. So we'll get right into it. So starting off with the monsters, you have to run 3 of each. I think anybody playing Prank Kids knows that you have to run 3 of each because you want to see at least 2 in your opening hand with like a fusion spell card, or at least 1 and an extender like Instant Fusion or Prank Kids Pranks. So 3 of each. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what they do, but just really quick: burns for 500, gains 1,000, foolish burials the whole archetype, and then you banish a card in your hand and you draw a card, and then that's the condition that you need to meet in order to special summon a different one from the deck. Okay, so this can special summon any of these 3. This can special summon any of these 3, as long as they're not the same one. So yeah. 3 of each one. Okay, and then the last monster we play is 3 Ash. I think this is pretty standard from the deck profiles I've seen. It's pretty standard for the most part. This deck profile will be very similar, although I do have one card that I don't really see too often in other builds, which I'll show you guys. So that's it for the monsters. Going over the spells, we have 3 of the field spell, which searches any Prank Kids monster, and we want to see the Prank Kids monsters as fast as possible. This field spell is insane because it chain blocks Ash. It chain blocks pretty much anything with the exception of like a Veiler and Impermanence, but otherwise there's so much utility with this field spell. You search for any monster, and then on top of that, the 500 attack deduction when you summon a Link monster, a Prank Kids Link, or the 500 increase to all your monsters is just awesome. It really helps you push for game. Okay, and then moving on, we have the token generator, Prank Kids Pranks. So you discard a Prank Kids card to summon a Prank Kids token. Again, just to go into your Link plays, even for fusion summoning too. It comes in very clutch. And then for the fusion spells, we have the Prank Kids Pandemonium, which is their quick play spell card. I wish it was like during any phase of the turn, but I guess that would be too broken. You'd be able to like attack and then use it and then attack again, so I understand why it's only during the main phase. Next we have 3 Poly. 3 Poly is the best, arguably. You could argue it is the best fusion spell of the deck, because if you open this up, you're not restricted to just summoning Prank Kids from the extra deck, whereas if you use Pandemonium, you are restricted to only summoning Prank Kids extra deck monsters. So starting with Polymerization is awesome because this is searchable. Then we run 2 Invocation. We want to see 1 of these in our opening hand along with 2 Prank Kids monsters. That's why we have these ratios. Invocation really does the same thing as Polymerization. You never really Polymerization with monsters you control on the field. I mean, it does come up, but you don't do it that often. These are mostly starter cards that you want to see in your opening hand, so you could fuse without your normal summon. So that's it for our fusion spells, where I guess we have 3 more, which is Instant Fusion. Opening this up in a Prank Kids monster, you have your combos. It's not as good as opening Poly and 2 Prank Kids monsters, but It does help so much with consistency. It helps you get your combos off. So that's why we play 3, because just in case we don't see a poly, but we do see at least one instant fusion and a Prank Kids monster, we can still go off. Okay, and then moving on, we have 3 Called by the Graves. Believe it or not, Ash doesn't really hurt. I don't think any hand trap hurts that much besides Ghost Bell. Ghost Bell is probably the biggest enemy of this deck in terms of like hand traps, because Ghost Bell can stop like it can stop Doodle Doo from or any of the fusion monsters or the link monsters that allows you to manage your resources and just try to gain advantage. Ghost Bell stops that, so we want 3 Called by the Grave just in case. And Called by the Grave is so good against other matchups. Stopping the Ash sometimes is really good. And then we have 3 Desires. Desires, I've always had a love-hate relationship with this card, mostly a hate relationship, because I always seem to banish so many of the key cards. But in this deck, it works. It just works. In this deck, you have 3 of each monster. So sometimes you banish 1 of each, which is fine. When you banish 2 of the same one, it sucks, but you can still play. But Desires, again, it's just a very good card. I think in this deck, running it at 3 is fine, because again, if you have no need for Desires, the Earth, Prank Kids, Roxy's, you could just banish this and just draw a card if you really don't need to resolve Desires. Desires is just one of those cards where it's good to have just in case you don't open up that great. So we run 3. We just run multiples of so many cards. And then we have 2 of the Prankage Plan. I want to play this at 1, but I feel like at 2 it's necessary, because you send this card off crap, I forgot his name. It's Prank Kids, the Win one. The Thunder. Well, he's Win too. Fansies, there we go. So you send 1 off Fansies. Sometimes you search 1, depending on the matchup. If you're going against Altergeist or any back row heavy deck, you want to set this card and then be able to link it to the Link 4 on their turn and just heavy storm their whole back row. So 2 does come up, and then this card, my favorite part about this card is the Vanish effect, to shuffle as many Prank Kids cards from your graveyard into the deck, and then your opponent's attacking monster loses 100 for each. So it's so good. Damage step, activate this, shuffle all your resources back into the deck, and be able to play again. Your extra deck, and that's why we don't really in the grind game we can play because of this card. Solely because of this card. If this card didn't exist, it would be so hard to play in the grind game, but because of this card, it just stops so many things. It stops like the Milliseek. It could stop like the Lily Bell if you're going against Trickstars. Again, it's such a great card, especially being able to link on your opponent's turn. Believe it or not, you don't really use that effect too much. You use the Banish effect more. But yeah, we run 2. We wanna at least have access to 2. And then the last card I don't see many people playing, and I can make a whole video just on this card and why this card is amazing in this deck specifically, and that is Skill Drain. Skill Drain is insane in this deck because this tributes for cost. This tributes for cost. This tributes for cost. This tributes for cost. Every Prank Kids monster and Totally Awesome tributes for cost. They all the extra deck monsters tribute for cost. So because they do that, they're unaffected by Skill Drain, and Skill Drain just shuts down so many decks. Like if you draw this, why not play this? Like why not? I don't understand. Like if you open this up, it could be an auto win against so many decks. Or at the very least, if you don't open up that great and you open this card up, it could at least slow your opponent down until you build up advantage and draw what you need. Again, such a good card. I've drawn this card off Roxy's banishing a card in my hand, drawing a card, and I draw this, and I'm just like, I didn't even need it, but it's too good not to play. It's such an easy one-up to throw into the deck, and you play Desires, so you can afford to like play a 42 card deck since you play Desires. Again, skill drain, it's insane. Again, all your extra deck monsters, for the most part, that are Praying Kids, they tribute for cost. They're unaffected by this card at all. It's like playing this in ABCs. You can't not play it solely because you play Dragon Buster, because that extra deck monster exists. So yeah, skill drain is amazing. Negates all face-up effect monsters effects. So that's it for the main deck. Going on to the extra for the links, we have 2 Doodle Doo, a Dodo Doodle Doo, 2 Bow Wow, and then we have the Praying Kids Roaring Roaster. We have 1 Unicorn, 1 Phoenix. So this card is arguably the best link because it searches for your spell and traps, and when it's link summon, and then you can tribute it and then add 2 Praying Kids cards from your graveyard to your hand. Or if they're not a link, if it's say a fusion Praying Kids monster, you could just shuffle it back into the extra deck so you can manage your resources better. Bow Wow, on summon it doesn't do anything, but any Praying Kids monster that it points to gains 1,000 attack. And then during your opponent's turn, quick effect. So any time during your opponent's turn, you contribute it, and then do the same thing that Doodle Doo does pretty much. And then Roaring Roaster, he's a Heavy Storm Duster. You know, you could tribute him and then Heavy Storm your whole your opponent's whole board. You don't really use his other effect, which is if this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can target 1 card in your graveyard except a link monster, add it to your hand. You can only use this card. If it gets striked, like if they strike this, you could use its effect, but that rarely comes up. And then Unicorn, just a generic link 3 just for removal. Phoenix, same thing. What sucks about summoning these is that if you summon them using Praying Kids monsters, you don't get the Praying Kids effects, would suck. But again, this is for those difficult situations that you need to get out of, so it's good to have access to these cards. Yeah, so I don't run 3 of this because you don't need 3. Chances are you'll be able to shuffle it back with like the trap card. Bow Wow is good at 2 as well. As long as you have access to at least 2 of the links, the link 2s, I think you should be fine. And then for the last links, we run the Boral Brothers. We got Borrelsword and Borreload Dragon. This is one of the best decks that takes advantage of these 2 cards. This deck builds advantage, especially when it comes is easily spams monsters on the board, and because of that, you're able to have easy access to these 2 cards. I use Borrelsword more than Borreload. Borrelsword, just it's insane. I summon Borrelsword, and every single time I summon this card, I know I'm going for a game and it's going to be over, because just that attacking twice, that attack gain is fantastic. It's so powerful. I know this card is super expensive, but it deserves its price tag just for what it can do and just of how generic it is, and it's so easy to steal games just with this one card, just having access to this card. Borreload, of course, before Borrelsword, this was the best link for. I can't say that one is better than the other. I want to say Borrelsword in this deck is better than Borreload, but Borreload is still is needed because for monsters that Borrelsword can't get over, Borreload can get over because it's you know, it's non-targeting destruction, and it steals the monster, and it's just a really good link for. And then for the fusions, we have 2 Rocket, we have 2 Weathery Washer, and then we have the Battle Butler, which for the most part, I think against most matchups, you summon him more than the link 4. Again, it all depends on what matchups. By the way, I forgot to mention something about Bow Wow. When he uses his effect to tribute to you know, add 2 Prank Kids monsters, 2 Prank Kids cards from your graveyard to your hand. When he uses that effect for the rest of the turn, Prank Kids monsters you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So that's pretty good. You don't have to worry about like you know, them destroying your monsters, obviously, so you could survive another turn, build up that advantage. Weathery Washer, these two, instead of adding to the hand, they special summon. So any two non-fusion Prank Kids monsters that are in your graveyard, you can special summon them to your side of the field, as long as they're not fusion. Weathery Washer, if it could activate this effect during your opponent's turn, and then if it does, those Prank Kids cards that you special summon from the graveyard can't be destroyed by battle this turn, and then this can be activated during your turn. This is the one that you usually summon going first, and you're starting in your turn 0. So you summon this, and then you tag out, you tribute it, and then you special summon like your links or your as long as they're not fusion. This card is an Armades. When it attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps. I think it's for all Prank Kids monsters. Yeah, if your Prank Kids monsters attack. So any Prank Kids monster that attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps when they declare the attack, which is really good. So it has like that Utopia the Lightning effect. And then this card, when it's fusion summoned, you can make it lose 1,000 attack, and then it could attack directly this turn. Never comes up, but you could use it to chain block. And then Battle Butler is, of course, the Raigeki on your opponent's turn, which comes up so often. He's extremely powerful. He's 3,000. Just a big beat stick. And then he has this other effect where if he is... If this card in your position is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, so same thing as the Link 4, you can target one non-fusion monster in your graveyard to special summon it. Unfortunately, you can't special summon this, even if it's it says must be fusion summoned, and then the other Link 4, Roaring Roaster, says it must be Link summoned. So unfortunately, you can't special summon them back from the graveyard. You have to shuffle them back. And then lastly, we play the One Totally Awesome. We have easy access to this card. I make this card all the time, going first. It's just a negate. When you negate, you just add the Dropsies. That's exactly how you make them with the 2 waters. They're level 2, so you you overlay and then you summon Toad that way. And when you do summon it, and when you do activate its effect, you just add Dropsies back to your hand, and that's how you're able to fusion summon using this card. So it's really good. So that is it for the main and extra. I have a side deck, but I feel like side deck is up to personal preference. You know what? I'll just show you guys. Why not? So it's 3 evenly, 3 infinite impermanence. I know these are the money cards. We're getting reprints though. You guys can run whatever you want, honestly. These are like more the budget options. We have there can only be one. All your monsters for the most part are different. They're different types. So you have like Pyro, Thunder, Aqua. So this card doesn't really hurt you. So it's a total blowout for so many other decks. Like, you know, Altergeist, if you're playing like zombies, for example. And then we run 2 Red Reboot. Red Reboot is awesome, of course, you know, being able to stop those back row decks. And then you could just heavy Storm Duster their back row. So even if they set another card, it's they're losing, because you're gonna just like heavy dust storm their whole field and just get rid of everything. Or this deck OTKs very easily, so you could just go for game. They won't even survive another turn. And then we run 3 Denko. We don't need our normal summon for the most. If we open up the fusion, any of the fusion spells, we don't need our normal summon. So you normal summon this, they can't play, and you could legit go for an OTK that turn. And then we run, lastly, I run the 2 Pankatrops. Pankatrops is one of the best side deck cards the Yu-Gi-Oh community has ever been blessed with. It's a common. It's an amazing side deck card. It's a free body that's 2,600 on board. Going second, you special summon this if your opponent controls at least 1 monster. And then you could attack and tribute it and pop a card. There's so much value in this card, and once you summon this card, your opponent definitely gets scared. It gets rid of Floodgates. It's just a really good card. Gets rid of Inspector Border. I can't say enough good things about this card. This card deserves a rarity bump. This card deserves to be an ulti. That's how good this card is. But yeah, so it's a common. I mean, it's insane. So yeah, guys, that is it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. I might do some test hands. Let me know if you guys want to see test hands. I would be happy to do a video just showing you guys what this deck can do. Maybe go over combos, and then see how you see if you guys want to try it out for yourselves. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I know this video was a little long. If you stuck till the end, I appreciate that. Please, if you guys want to check out my Instagram, it's We Love Yu-Gi-Oh. I always like trade and sell and stuff like that. So yeah, check it out if you guys want. Again, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.